Hi, this is Bruce Rawles, and I have the pleasure of speaking with Jon Mundy today. And Jon is a longtime student and teacher of A Course in Miracles, and in fact was one of the earliest to learn about the Course historically. And I'm delighted to have a conversation today with Jon. And Jon has a website that's miraclesmagazine.org, and there's lots of great stuff there. And he's published a number of books. And I'm going to let you, Jon, fill in all the gaps and maybe give people who the few that might not be familiar with your work a chance to get acquainted with you and welcome to the conversation. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Bruce. It's been nice to spend some time with you. Been looking forward to doing that for a long time. This is a great way to do it.
Me too. Me too.
So I guess the first thing you do is just go to the first page, right? and talk about, first of all, how I met Helen and Bill. I guess that would be the most important part.
Yeah.
Which was in 1973 at a conference sponsored by an organization called Spiritual Frontiers Fellowship. I was one of the speakers there, and the keynote speaker was Hugh Lynn Casey, Edgar Casey's son. And I'm pretty sure, although I wasn't in on it, that Helen Bill must have had a session with Hugh Lynn Casey at that time. So they actually came to the presentation I was doing, which was on mysticism. I was teaching classes on mysticism at the New School University at that time. And after the session was over, I was introduced to the two of them, and they said something about Helen had written like this inspirational book. I don't think they said A Course in Miracles. I don't really remember what they said, but I remember actually looking at Helen. And Helen's this short little woman with frizzy hair and big glasses, and thinking, isn't that sweet? The little old lady wrote an inspirational book. And
Nothing so blinding as for perception of form, huh? Yeah.
Oh God, it's like, and I had a book out. I mean, I just written my first book had come out,
Yeah.
which of course was nothing, compared to the course, a little 110 page or something like that called Learning to Die. But anyhow, I was introduced to them at that point, and that was it. And then the next year, 74, I wrote a letter, which was published in the Journal of Transpersonal Psychology, expressing interest in being in contact with people who was working in fields of psychotherapy and spirituality. And Bill saw my letter, told Helen he thought it was a call for her to complete the writing of the psychotherapy pamphlet, which she had started but never finished. And so Bill and Ken both were kind of prodding her to finish that pamphlet. And Bill says, look, this guy wants this information. Why don't you finish it so you can give it to him? And Helen agreed. As it turned out, we lived pretty close to each other. We were in the same area in New York City. I was on the west side. She was on the east side. She was on East 17. Ken was on right across the street. Ken deliberately got an apartment across from Helen, just so that to make it really easy for the two of them to work together. They also commuted together to Columbia University. In the back of taxi cabs, they got a lot of work done on the course. Because Helen did not like to ride subways. She wouldn't do it unless she absolutely had to. So Helen called me in April 1975 and says, I have something for you. Reminded me that we had met. And I didn't know what she was talking about, but I agreed to go meet her and Ken and Bill and Father Benedict Rochelle in Ken Wapnick's apartment on East 17th Street. So Helen sat on Ken's daybed, very small little studio apartment, most Spartan thing. There was almost nothing there, but I mean, I went into the bathroom, a towel, a toothbrush.
Minimalist,
Ken getting ready. Ken was a minimalist, just like Bill. I mean, he was formally weeks before that, he was going to go to Israel to become a monk. And of course, once he found the course, that all came to an end. Yep. So he had really kind of dispossessed himself of his possessions. So Helen told me about the courses I was saying, gave me the manuscript of the psychotherapy pamphlet, told me how it had affected the other people who were in the room. At the end of that session, it was agreed that Ken and I would continue to get together for a discussion. And it was also that Helen and I were going to get together for more discussion, not in terms of what the course said. Ken was the one who was doing that more than anything else. But Helen really became for me a kind of informal therapist and mother hen. Helen was really, really good when she was on her helping side. She really knew how to help. That was a very positive part of her life. And actually, something happened that same week, which was I had started a relationship with a woman. I had like 2 dates, and it was very clear to me I didn't want to continue to pursue this. And so I made that clear to the woman, and she got very upset, very, very angry. And she started acting out. She started calling me at 2 o'clock in the morning, just to let the phone ring, just to annoy me. And she came to my office apartment that I had inside the Theological Seminary. And when the guard at the door told her I wasn't in, she picked up coffee off the desk and threw it in his face.
Oh, man.
She later came back to my office apartment, and I had another lady was dating then at that time there. And as we were coming out, this lady physically attacked her. Now I was able to restrain her and throw my car keys to my girlfriend, who ran to the car and locked herself in the car. So nothing really bad happened in that sense, but it was really, people were saying, get a restraining order, things like that. I didn't want to do that. So I told Helen about what was happening. So I said, let's get together and talk. So I would meet with Helen in Ken's apartment, never in her own apartment. So easy to just walk across the street. And, also Louis was there. And as I understand, her apartment was a little messy in the sense that Louis was a pack rat. Place was filled with magazines and papers and stuff like that. So anyhow, it was much more convenient than Ken's apartment. And I told her about what had happened. And I hadn't been there really too long. And Helen did the strange thing when we were together. She would reach out and tap on my knee. We'd be sitting pretty close to each other. And she would say, in this case, she says, the next time that woman calls, you answer the phone and talk to her. She needs your help. Well, that same night, phone rang at 2 o'clock in the morning. I answered the phone. We talked until daylight.
Wow.
And we worked it out. We are still friends this day. We still have a relationship. Nothing like there's of course nothing intimate about that, but and just loving each other as human beings. So that was the beginning.
Nice.
It was also decided at that point that Ken and I would continue to get together for conversation. He came to General Theological, and we had a session together. We just talked about our past and our journeys that we've been on and how we got to this place we are now. And that was all it was about, just kind of getting to know each other. And I had some experience putting together workshops and seminars, Wainwright House in Rye, New York, and other places, also for Spiritual Frontiers Fellowship. So once the course was released, which was in June 25th, I think it was, or 26th of 1975, and it was available for people. I started sponsoring these lectures by Ken at my church, for Spiritual Frontiers, Wainwright House, and most importantly, beginning in 1977, I bought a house in Westchester, Tony, New York, and it was totally secluded. It was about 1,000 feet off the road, 2.5 acres, total seclusion. And I started doing workshops. And so I had a big living room, and I would have Ken come about twice a year. He got something. I wasn't supposed to do commercial business there. So I kind of did it on Memorial Day weekend and Labor Day weekend, when it wouldn't look funny that a lot of cars are going in and out the driveway. And so that continued actually with Ken up and through 1984. He founded the Foundation for A Course in Miracles in '83. So at that time, he was doing his own thing. And he
It's quite a
didn't,
long time then.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was a bit of a time,
Yeah.
but that made us get a little bit close. He also lived very nearby. He moved to Westchester. He was in
Oh,
Ardsley. I was in
okay.
Kona. So there were some times that I would go visit him in Ardsley. I'll tell you a funny story about visiting him in Ardsley once. This is the very, very early days of the course. And I would go into the city to teach. Ardsley's on the way home and then home. So I stopped by one day, and he said, he was working on the glossary index for the course.
Mhm.
And he says, come here, I want to show you something. And we went out to the garage. This was actually Gloria's parents' home. They were living with them during the latter years of their lives. And by the way, not Helen, Gloria's mother really loved Ken. You know, I mean, she thought he was like Jesus Christ or something. And she would ask him questions and stuff like that. But he was very, very kind to both of them, by the way. Anyhow, we go out to the garage and there are card tables all over the garage. Everything's been emptied out except for the card tables all around and shoe boxes on the card tables. And then those 8x5 cards inside the shoe boxes, all of which contain the entire index for Course in Miracles. Can you imagine him going through and doing, and this is
Low tech, huh?
low tech. There are no computers, right?
Uh-huh.
We're talking about 1981, 2, somewhere along in that area, right in there.
Yep.
And but that became the first glossary index. Of course, that one didn't have the numbered section. That came on a little bit later.
Annotation, yeah.
So that was kind of how it all got started.
Huh.
And I didn't spend much time with Bill. Sometimes Judy would have people over to her place. Judy had this wonderful apartment on 81st Street, Central Park West in New York City. And we would meet there. Judy and I had met before. Judy and I met in 67, 68, somewhere along the line. Actually, I was introduced to the course about 6, 8 weeks before Judy. It was very, very close. And when I found out that Judy was into it, that got me even more interested because Judy just took fire with this thing. When she got it, it was like, this is what she'd been looking for all of her life. Now she had it. And I still didn't know yet. But once I saw Judy's enthusiasm, that helped me bring me in more deeply into it. And so we would meet there for brief encounters. And Judy was doing things like having Uri Geller come on and over and Ben spoons and seeing the latest in Curlian photography and all kind of psychic stuff that was going on. But once the course came, she gave all that. She was head of this thing called the Parasensory Foundation. She was also a part of the American Society for Psychical Research. We were both members of that. So we overlapped there. In fact, at that time, I was dating the lady who was the secretary to the president of the Foundation for Psychical Research. And her and Judy, her name was Ziva. They spent a lot of time together as well. That's enough of that. And so then after that, it was just like more and more time with Ken. And he had a place very near mine. He went from Ardsley to Compound, where he had a kind of a large place. It's a funny story about that too. The place that I had bought was not a legitimate place to have work. In fact, it's the very first workshop I put together. I made a big mistake. I had a sign out front. And I didn't know you couldn't put a sign out front. And neighbors saw it and called the zoning board. And there was an interesting thing about Helen and Bill on that too. And that, so I got a cease and desist notice from the zoning board. You can't hold workshops in your home, right? So they said, well, I could apply for a variance. So I'm from a farm in Missouri and there are no zoning laws. And so I applied for this variance, and little did I know that my neighbors all got a petition against me. And they held this zoning board hearing. It was in July of 1977. It was a very hot day, kind of like the last few days have been here, right? And the air conditioner was broken in the room where the hearing was being held. And I was 11th on the docket. These were all zoning questions that came up. So by the time they got to my case, it was 11 o'clock at night. Everybody was dripping in sweat, mad as hell. I didn't stand a chance in the world. But I lost only by a vote of 3-4, which was sort of interesting. But the chairman of the zoning board cast the final and deciding vote. I couldn't do it. So that's why I started doing it on holiday weekends when And I didn't advertise in the community. I would only advertise like in New York City and places like that.
Hmm.
So what was funny about that was when I was going to buy this place, Helen said, it's not going to work. Helen told me, like, this isn't going to work. And it's like, what, you're psychic or something? I still didn't quite know who Helen was.
Yeah.
But she was right. And as I said, the first workshop I put together, got to resist order. But it was really what interesting was happening was Bill intervened and told Helen to leave me alone, that it was going to work out. And they were both right.
Huh.
I
Interesting.
wasn't able to do it because of the zoning board situation, but a small group of people, I started having workshops. There was nothing that says I couldn't do classes in my home. That was legal. Right? I could teach classes in my home. I couldn't do something commercial, but I could have classes, Bible study, that kind of thing.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
So a whole group of people formed around that. The name of the place had a name, it's called High Rock Spring. Beautiful, because there was actually a spring bubbling up out of the ground there around these rocks. And I put a fountain in the spring to make it even shoot up even higher. So that was a lot of fun. But it still worked in a sense. I couldn't make money there the way I planned, but I had this big place. So I rented out 3 of the bedrooms, and that was enough to pay for the place and to pay for the monthly expenses, etc. And I wound up selling it for 3.5 times what I paid for it in 1988, 11 years later. So then I finally sold the place in 1988, went across the Hudson River to where I am now on the west side of the river. At exactly the same time that Ken bought Roscoe. So Ken went to Roscoe, I went to Monroe, New York.
Okay.
And he was a much more successful, I tell you that, because as it turned out, I bought a country inn thinking that I would buy a place that was already making money and then sort of convert it over time to a gross sale. Well, it never happened because I put so much money down, I didn't have much to do repairs and advertising and stuff like that. And within a year, I was in big trouble, and I knew that I was. So I make that long story short, I lost that in, I had to sell it. I sold it for $100,000 less than I paid for it, just to get out from under it. And well, that was what that was. But that then forced me, at the same time I was working as a Methodist minister. I also lost that job. They weren't happy with my teaching the course. They weren't interested in my interfaith activities. And I had a psychedelic experience, which I didn't mind talking about. It was a death experience. They didn't like me talking about that. It's impossible to talk about that sort of thing to people who have not had any experience with this at all. There's no way they could understand, just no way at all you can understand it. But it was a death experience, and that was in 76, actually with Dr. Salvador Roquette, who was a Mexican psychiatrist, who took us on a journey into the jungles of Chiapas in southern Mexico, which is interesting because after that experience, I really started understanding the course. Because what happened in that was a total disintegration of the ego, which is not fun. Man, it was like I thought I was dying. I thought I had died. I didn't know I'd come back. I was kind of surprised when I did. I couldn't talk when I come
Dark
back.
night of the soul kind of experience, or like maybe the fifth stage in the development of trust.
Oh yes, it's exactly. It's
Yeah.
exactly the 5th stage
Yeah.
in the development of trust.
Yeah.
Which is it's interesting because just this afternoon I was teaching a class where we went through the first 4 stages. And it says, wait till next week. You're not going to enjoy the 5th stage.
Yeah, you know what I really love about that one paragraph, where it says that this could take a long, long, long time, and it says if it would be, if this step, it'd be really awful if this. I'm paraphrasing as usual. If each step weren't so heavily reinforced. I think it's toward the end of that paragraph. It says each step is so heavily reinforced, which I take it to mean is like, well, okay, I get the opportunity to notice how I feel. And if I'm not at peace, it means I've chosen the wrong teacher. And every step is reinforced with that feedback.
Right.
Yeah.
Very good, Bruce. That's exactly that.
Yeah.
Well, anyhow, that changed everything for me. And that
Oh, I
also
can
was,
imagine. I can imagine.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it
Yeah.
was just, on the one hand, it was a beautiful, beautiful experience. I mean, the death part was hellish because, I was 33 at the time, and how this was going to affect my parents when they heard that their son was died in jungles in Chiapas with taking drugs and all that kind of stuff. Of course, none of that was true. I mean, I was in jungles doing that, but I didn't die, certainly.
Hmm.
My heart never stopped beating during the experience. I have detailed this description in a book called Eternal Life and A Course in Miracles. I think the books are out on that, but it still exists in audio on Amazon.
Okay.
Just yesterday, interestingly enough, I did an interview with some folks in Spanish speaking in South America because the guy had read the book and he really wanted to do this interview.
Hmm. Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
So that's kind of the beginning. And I kept working with Helen. There were other times that I would go to see her. Um, one other instance was when I had fallen in love with another woman. I was going through a lot of that was the hard part of it. It was my looking for my wife, and hadn't found her. I eventually did 30 years later. I mean, I didn't meet my wife until 1994. So it was a while along the way. And then Ken always remained a friend. Roscoe was about an hour from where I am right now. So it was very easy to pop up to Roscoe, either to just have a private session with Ken or to sit down, more likely to go to sit on a workshop and then have some time at that point. And then even after he moved to California, Beverly Hudson at Miracles Distribution had these conferences every year.
Hmm.
So she started inviting me every other year to come. So every other year I would go and do a talk for her. And of course, go see Ken. And I'd do some other talks in Southern California while I was there. And then I started traveling and I went all over from, for about a 18, 19-year period up until COVID. I just mostly with unity churches on religious science churches in 47 states, I guess it was. I
Wow.
kept records,
Wow.
250 different churches.
That's a
So
lot.
yeah, it was a lot.
Wow.
But then COVID hit and everything came to a screeching halt. And we went Zoom.
As we're doing at the moment. Yes.
We're doing it at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Exactly.
Zoom is so much better because I was spending a tremendous amount of money, airplane tickets, rental cars, sometimes hotel expenses. So I go out, earn $4,000, expend $3,000 in the process. So that's like I make $1,000 in 10 days. And that's like $100 a day. And so this is just so much nicer now that in fact is actually I was giving lectures and I did one Sunday a month in New York City, a place called the Center for Remembering and Sharing, from May of 2013 through the COVID. So it was like 6.5 years, almost 7 years of that. But again, that meant going into New York City. People had to actually physically come there to be present. But those were all recorded there on YouTube now.
Nice.
More of a primitive kind of YouTube than we have now, in the sense that classroom full of people and the quality of the recordings weren't always great, but most of them are pretty good. So now it's just doing the course and teaching online and of course writing. And of course I started Miracles Magazine.
Yeah. And you've been doing that quite a number of years, haven't you? I mean, isn't it in multiple decades now?
Yeah, this is about 36 years.
No, I was going to say like just at least three decades, I think that since I've.
I started that in 1985.
Okay.
So very little thing by that. I mean, the way that got started was a member of the church where I was serving was moving, and he came to me and he said, I'm going to move. I know that you write out your sermons. Would you make a Xerox copy, put an envelope, put a stamp on it, and mail it to me? I'll give you $1 a week. All right. So, yeah, okay, sure. I'll give, so, well, I thought I could do this further. I'll send one to my mom and my sister and et cetera, whoever might be interested. I'll give them free, but if anybody else wants it, they got to pay for it. And it just kept growing. Just,
Mhm.
I mean, very, 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 we're still growing, but slowly, but we've gotten better over time. The fact that we're still growing for a magazine, a lot of magazines bit the dust a long time ago because of media.
Right, right.
But there's something about having something in your hand too that you can look at and leave laying on the coffee table or in the kitchen or wherever.
Yep.
And
I'm a
it's
both and kind of person. I like having the physical media as well as the online, and enjoy
yeah,
the best of both, right?
no, I agree.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Yeah.
And then about 4 years ago, I brought Glenn Hogan. Do you know Glenn Hogan?
I do. I actually met him in Utah at a benefit for FIP a few
Oh,
summers ago. Yeah.
well, actually, at that event in Utah, I was there,
Yep. Uh-huh.
and I got together with Glenn, and I asked him if he would join me. And Glenn is now the editor of the magazine. And what a great editor he is! I
Oh,
mean,
excellent.
he
Excellent.
really knows how to make the selections and do the editing, and it's taken a jump since he's been with me, which is really, really nice. He's very, very dedicated to
Excellent. Yeah.
awakening.
Synchronistically, in fact, my wife and I used to live in Nevada City and
Oh, did you?
yeah, in Grass Valley. So we're familiar with that area. Yeah. Huh?
Wow.
Yeah. In Northern California. Yeah.
So that's it. We just keep doing the course.
Well,
Doing
that's the practice, isn't it? It's just trying to be more and more mindful all the time. Notice when we're not at peace, and just keep
right,
with it. And yeah, I just wanted to mention again how much I enjoy your Sunday emails. I always look forward to reading those, and the insights that you share, and conferences you've done that I've been at over the years,
right.
and different things. And yeah. Anyways, very much
Um,
appreciated. I know you're doing online classes through Zoom, and you've got the
right.
YouTube channel and all the different books, and yeah.
This is it. But then, I mean, it's so nice knowing what you're supposed to be doing, have feeling as a sense of mission and purpose. And that's just, what else do you want? It's like content, right? Not looking
Yeah.
at anything outside of this work, because this is the work,
Yeah, it really is, isn't it?
not
Yeah.
without it.
Yeah. Moment to moment, isn't it? Just
Moment to moment, relationship to relationship, conversation to conversation,
yeah.
uh, regardless of what's going on. Whether it's the conversation I'm having with God while I'm gardening, or conversation with my wife or
Mhm.
grandchildren, or yeah,
Yep.
we grow through this.
I was doing a little gardening this morning, and
Well,
a few moments of putting out weed cloth and spreading bark and poking holes for the plants that were already there to come through, and there are a couple places where and it's on a little bank where there's this creek that runs through, and I was like, I almost slipped and got a little annoyed just momentarily, and then I caught myself, said, I'm actually uh, not at the mercy of this. I'm actually doing this because I want to be doing it, and then that kind of shifted my perspective around. But I think it seems like one of many countless examples of everyday stuff that we do, that we just kind of have to notice the opportunities to take what could be a grievance and turn it into an opportunity to
right.
be more peaceful. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
it's kind of a constant process of letting go,
Yeah.
which is all it is, letting go of the insanity, or I need to be right, or complain, or whatever I'm doing. Learning how to make this a truly loving relationship, whatever the relationship is.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
It's fun.
It is. It is. Yeah. And I think not only is the course fun when we give ourselves to it, but I also find that the course has a sense of humor too. And
Yes.
a few years ago, I started noticing I was putting little smiley faces in the margins of my I don't know if it was my second or third copy of the course. I've gone through a few, and I realized, well, I've got enough to put something together. So I gave a little talk at Estes Park on the humor in the course, but um, it does seem like the Holy Spirit gently pokes fun in the most benevolent, kind-hearted way of everyone's ego, and in a way to say, you could have more peace than you're giving yourself. Your opportunities to gladden yourself. As I think one of the phrases in the course that I find helpful is like that we don't need to squander. We can actually take each situation that otherwise could be a challenge, and doesn't mean we necessarily have to change the world, but change how we think about it. I think that's another one of those
That's the whole
key
thing.
ideas in the course, isn't it? Yeah.
I remember hearing Ken Wapnick once say that you can tell that Jesus didn't write the Gospels because not once in the Gospels does it say Jesus laughed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you got to laugh.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So,
The tiny mad idea that
that idea.
we forgot to laugh. Yeah.
It's absurd to think that you could think a thought outside of the mind of God.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll
Which
laugh at
which
that.
which basically ties into another area that I find fascinating, is kind of the overlap between physics and modern physics. I actually grew up in a town in Northern California. My dad worked for a national research lab, Lawrence Livermore Lab there, and running a cyclotron, an atom smasher, basically. So I got to hear jargon about isotopes and deuterium and the D's of a cyclotron and things like that most kids didn't hear growing up, and so I kind of came by the physics through osmosis, but my mom was always interested in the metaphysics, so I kind of like, well, how do these overlap here?
Exactly
But
right.
it's interesting how modern physics really,
Right.
where it's heading to is it. Even just recently, the James Webb Space Telescope, is going farther ago and farther away.
Right.
So however many billion years farther than before, and yet, it's interesting that I think one of the last, and I think Ken Wapnick said something about this that I find helpful is no matter how far science goes, the very last thing that they'll probably conclude is that the universe was made by guilt, because that's nobody wants to look at that, right? Yeah, yeah,
But that's right.
yeah,
I mean, the physical universe, yes.
yeah, yeah. I
Yeah, the
mean,
physical universe is they come the escape pod, it's like let's get away from God.
let's take all this unconscious, unfounded guilt, get it out of my backyard, throw it over the fence,
Right.
and
Say it's somebody
be
else's
be done
fault.
with it, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
my fault, it's your fault. The course is so exciting, but it works. It really it wakes people up. You see the insanity of the world and you begin to make these decisions that you're not going to play that silly game.
yeah.
Be insane yourself just because the world is.
Such an important point, and so timely right now too, because there's so many. You know, it seems like things are getting crazier and crazier, um,
But I
and
think that's part of it.
yeah, yeah,
I mean, it's as we purify, we also discharge the sloth and the junk and the insanity of it, and that's not fun.
mm-hmm.
It's kind of like throwing up, and then after you feel better, but we got to throw up first, get the poisons out of the system.
Right,
That's the hard part. That's back to the section 5, the trust
yeah,
thing too. That's why it's so difficult.
yeah. It's not certainly not easy, but it is simple. I like how
Yes.
the course reminds us that it's phenomenally simple, but also devilishly challenging. It seems, only because we've made it that way.
Yeah.
We've rehearsed a role of an imposter identity that we're such good actors and pathological liars. It's saying that we're not identical to each other and to our creator, that we've bought into it hook, line, and sinker, and believed it so thoroughly. We're staying so much in character in those roles that we've kind of forgot that it's a theatric production of
And we don't
astronomical
see it.
proportions. Huh?
We don't know it. We don't see it. So and when you begin to wake up, you see it. But a lot of people, like, Gurdjieff's talked about people who are sleepwalking or just sleepwalking through this and thinking that this is real, and it's just a lucid dream, which makes it seem very real, but it's still a dream. Heaven is being awake.
Yeah. All our time is spent in dreaming, the course says, right?
Because all our time is spent in dreaming.
Yeah.
Your nighttime dream, your daytime dream, it just has a different form. That's all. Right? And when you're dreaming at night, you don't think about this not being real, and you might, at which point you're having a lucid dream, but most of the time, you still think these things are happening. You got to get to the end to see it. But I mean, that's why you get to the end, you can look back and say, "Oh, now I see." Right. I mean, I see why things had to happen. I see that it's all set, for example. Right.
Yeah. That's actually encouraging too. When you have even just a little bit of, retrospect insight, and you look back and see how you haven't really conquered the challenges of the past. You've kind of outgrown them by seeing that they really weren't what we thought they were. Yeah.
Outgrown's a good word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's another word that I remember when I heard about it that is the Aramaic word for evil that's used in the Bible. In that era, what was translated as evil, apparently there's this Aramaic scholar named Neil Douglas Klotz, and he said that the word for evil in Aramaic actually was unripe. And I thought,
I'm writing this down. That's really good.
Isn't that cool? Yeah, I thought that was pretty neat, because it basically, gives not only a foundation for being patient with ourselves, but also for the foundation for forgiveness. Is, if we're still dreaming and we've forgotten that we're dreaming, then it's just that we haven't blossomed, we haven't ripened, we haven't, you haven't woken up to our real identity. Yeah.
We're not ready.
Yeah.
To be eaten.
Well, but maybe that too.
By this giant called God.
Yeah, disappear into the heart of God. Yeah. Then that kind of reminds me of something. I think it was in one of Ken and Gloria's workshops that I remember listening to, where Gloria said that she asked if there was a little buzzer like those like a little button that you could press that would take you home to God, instantly. And I think she asked how many people in the room would hit that, and be done with everything that they ever knew. Not many hands went up.
Oh God, no. I mean,
so we're all foot draggers. And another thing I find helpful too is the idea that I'm the only one playing hooky from perfect oneness, and that I don't need to worry about what someone else's progress is, because they're already home, and I'm the only one that's dawdling and waiting around. When I in my saner moments, when I remember that, which isn't that often, but it's getting a little more frequent. So yeah.
Well, it should. I mean, anybody that's consistently studying A Course in Miracles, I mean, you do begin to wake up. You just, first of all, you just start seeing the dream.
Yeah.
I think you should live in such a way that you're seeing the dream, and that gives us freedom from the insanity of it, because then you're not so plugged into thinking this is real. Right? That's why, particularly without going into this at all, that's politics. You look at politics and what a funny dream this is. I wouldn't want to be a politician, because you get, well, I am right and the other guy's wrong. I mean, what a job that would be.
Yeah, I was watching some of the hearings that have been televised lately, and one of the phrases that I caught, maybe I think it was actually an NPR commentary on it, was about the hearings, was they're talking about witness tampering. And I was thinking, wow, what a great metaphor. The biggest witness tamperer there is everyone's ego, right?
Yeah,
We're all doing identity theft and witness tampering and a lot of these thick crimes that we think are horrible, and then from a cosmic metaphysical perspective, not that it has had any impact on our reality, but relative to what we think we are, we're all witness tamperers, and we're all identity thieves, and we're all pathological liars relative to the eternal truth of what we are, huh?
right.
Yeah.
I don't, I got Tony Ponicello's Miracles
Yeah.
Monthly
Uh-huh.
recently, and I don't normally read these, but I started reading, and his most recent article is about this psychologist named Mattis Desmet, Desmet, who's talking about this sort of psychosis of the society,
Mm-hmm.
and how he says it's not even the leaders that are doing this to us. It wasn't Hitler that did it. It was something that was in the mind of people, and Hitler just took advantage of it.
Yeah.
He just capitalized on it and made
Right.
it real. And then, of course, the whole thing blew apart and fell apart. They kind of, and also, I don't know if you ever heard Paul Levy, that author, and he wrote this book about Wetiko, Dispelling Wetiko, which is this idea that society is insane.
Mm-hmm.
But again, we don't see it, except for the few people who can kind of work themselves out of that. Take, for example, religion. Take any religion. It's interesting to me that the churches are dying, and they're dying very, very fast, because I think people are tired of rules and regulations and creeds and dogmas and required perspectives, and where it's like we want to break free from all these rituals and dogmas and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There's something in the human spirit that wants to do that. So, and it's interesting that it's happening at the same time as Zoom is happening, and YouTube is happening, because
Mm-hmm.
we've got all these really good teachers on there that are talking about this other ways of seeing, deeper and broader ways of seeing. It's not institutionalized. Some of them are like they got their own things going. We all got our own thing going in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
But there's an awareness that we can't keep thinking inside a box. We've got to really, really step out into this much bigger universe out there than, and there's a wonderful line at the end of lesson 52. It says, would I not rather join in the thinking of the universe than to continue to obscure all that's really mine with my pitiful, meaningless, private thoughts? Wow, I know. I mean, isn't that a great line?
That's a wonderful line. Yeah, that really
Yes,
is. Yeah.
check it, the last sentence and or last two sentences on
52.
50.
Huh? Okay, I'll check that out. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
Pitiful,
actually
meaningless, private thoughts.
in,
That's good.
I take it back. It's actually in the review of 52.
50. Okay. Okay.
The review of 52. That's
All
where
right.
they, yeah, right.
Huh.
And then there's another one that's similar to that I really like, is that God is the God of the universe and the universe of universes. What is the universe of universes? You're talking about the Webb telescope, right?
Fractals of fractals. Yeah.
Fractals of fractals.
Yeah.
I mean, I was reading what they discovered now that there's at least 2 trillion galaxies that they can see. And then 2 trillion? And then
Only 2 trillion? They're gonna run out pretty soon, right?
and after that, well, and that's just as what we can see, you know, that's as
Right,
far
right,
as
right.
we can
Yeah.
go. I mean, all of these have got their own solar systems. And no, God knows how many, God knows literally how many solar systems there are.
Actually, if the course is right and their metaphysics is sound, if God knows about all those galaxies and solar systems, then we're in trouble, right?
Well, yeah, in that sense, right.
Mm-hmm.
We have a difficulty. It's very hard for us to understand the separation between space-time and mind,
Yeah.
and understanding that what's really going on is happening on this. It's actually invisible to us in space-time, but we think everything is real, so we can see and touch it, all that sort of stuff. And that's just external manifestation. It's not what's really going on.
Yeah.
It's inside, and that's why the Course says the kingdom of heaven is, well, Jesus in the gospel says the kingdom of heaven is inside you. And of course, Miracles comes along and says, well, that's right, but we need to take it a little bit further. Stockwhite's tried to say the kingdom of heaven's inside you. The kingdom of heaven is you.
Yeah. Yeah.
You are the kingdom of heaven.
Which obviously would have to make you have to make sure the identity of the you is clarified, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Obviously, we're not talking about these little bodies in space time.
Not the Johns and the Bruces.
No, the Johns and the Bruces, I'm sorry to say, but not really. At some point, these things will disappear.
Mhm.
How could it not disappear? And then along with that, and this is a tragedy of when I had that death experience in '76, was all the concomitants of that, the name, occupation, personality, all of that stuff. None of that. That's all just a part of this current play.
Mhm.
The current, what's on the stage, so to speak, at the moment in space time. And that's a dream. How nice to see that that's a dream.
Yeah.
That I don't have to take that this is real. This kid is screaming at me right now. My nagging wife, whatever it is, right?
All the gazillion things that seem to
Tell you,
affront us every day. Huh? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great relief.
It really is. Yeah. One of the things when I was refreshing myself on some of your background, writing and talking about mysticism, I've always kind of liked that word too, in the sense that the idea that there's got to be something more, and I suppose you could say the religious impulse, not necessarily the dogma, but and the ritual, but the impulse of wanting to find what's true. And in fact, I was a fan of Richard Bach's writings, who wrote Jonathan Seagull and Illusions.
Oh gosh, yes.
And one of the things he said years ago, I always admired, is, religion is or should be a way of finding out what's true. And I thought, well, in that sense, I think everyone, the true religious impulse then would have to be, the willingness to consider that, maybe the identity and the world as we've conceived it is greatly misunderstood. Another course quote that I find really helpful lately, that been one of my I kind of rotate through favorite course quotes, but
Oh,
one that goes, "Son of God, you have not sinned, but you've been much mistaken."
very good.
And
Yeah,
I really like that one, because it's like, okay, the whole guilt thing,
that's a big mistake.
nah, that doesn't work in eternity, and you got to figure out how to heal your mind of that kind of stuff, and projecting it as well. But the much mistaken, that's actually very helpful, because if I'm just much mistaken, it means, well, then there's a correction for that I can do something
Right.
about. Yeah.
Yeah, very good. It's just a mistake.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a sin.
Yeah. Exactly.
You're not going to hell because of it.
Yep.
Right.
We're just not fully ripened.
Yeah, right. That's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to research that myself.
I'll send you a link to
Oh,
that author.
good. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
appreciate it.
Yeah. But yeah, I was just he was on an interview that I heard a couple of decades ago, and that stuck with me. It's like, it's just unripe. It's just not blossomed, opened, awakened, developed. And so,
Right.
yeah, why would you judge a kindergartner for not knowing calculus? It's like, well,
Exactly.
they're not ready for that yet. Yeah.
They don't have to know calculus.
Yeah.
No way love is.
So what prompted you to study mysticism, and I imagine there's probably a lot more backstory to that too.
Well, it's. I think with a lot of people that do this, that they're going to say that it's like it's always been with them.
Mm-hmm.
And I grew up on a farm in Missouri in the '40s and '50s, and nature was right out our back door, literally, right, and all the animals, and there's just a natural thing about what is this? I mean, what is this nature? What are these animals? Nature mysticism, I guess we could say, is a root there, and
Mm-hmm.
we're very fortunate, I think, if you get to grow up in nature. That, I don't know whether you know who Beth Gear is or not, but she's also from the West, and she's got a new book coming out about the Course and the
Oh, okay.
Ranch. That's an interesting combination. And her experiences of transcendence.
Mm-hmm.
So there, and just all, I had an experience when I was 14 years old. I was hunting in the woods. Now, at 14, I got a gun at 12. I got a BB gun at 12 and a real gun at 14. All farm boys did.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, you didn't go to a bar mitzvah, you got your gun. Right?
I had sort of similar upbringing. My dad was an avid hunter, and so he took me hunting in Northern California to a
Yeah.
place in the family-owned property, and so yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So I'm out hunting, and there's a thing you do when you hunt. We call it freezing. So what you do is you stand perfectly still. Sometimes they have blinds and stuff, but you just stand perfectly still. So you're not trumping the words. The animals can't hear you. Some animals don't have very good eyesight. They could a squirrel get real close to you before it sees you, right? And if you're not down one from you, they won't smell you. And I'm freezing, and for some reason, it all just stopped. I mean, it was like I was really frozen. And I stopped thinking. I don't know how else to explain. There was just this space where there was no thinking. And then what brought me back was the thought, what happened? I mean, what's going on here? And I heard a voice. And the voice said, "Who wants to know?"
What? Where'd that come from?
Oh yeah, exactly. Where it was like the other voice, but still it was just very clear, very distinct. But so the question was who, and I knew I was going to spend the rest of my life trying to answer that question. The question is, who's asking this question?
Mm-hmm.
What's going on, right?
Yeah.
So that's and the only thing that was talking about that for a kid in Missouri in 57, I guess it was a church.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I got very involved in the church and literally became a minister, serving my own church at the age of 18.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yep.
You've been at it a while. That's
At
great. That's great. I
63.
actually looked up the word minister, and I was looking at the verb, just kind of thinking about your background.
Sure.
And I was thinking, well, the verb form is to care for and to treat in a healing way. And I was thinking, well, that's essentially what our inner kindness teacher, aka Holy Spirit, does to our minds, isn't it? It ministers to all of our misperceptions and projections and says, you haven't sinned, but you've been much mistaken.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just earlier today, I wrote my piece for Sunday with Mundy for this
Yeah.
next week, and it's called "Help Yourself," and it's about helping. It's so important that we have this function of being able to give, to help,
Mm-hmm.
and it actually that helps to wake us up. We like to be helped. We like to help.
Mm-hmm.
And I had another experience that this is much more recent, like maybe this last year somewhere, I don't remember when. But I woke up early in the morning and I'm not time to get up yet, an hour before I get up, but I like that early morning hour.
Mm-hmm.
The mind is fresh and it's a really good time to ask, how do I handle a situation? I had a pile of stuff that I had to get through. Saying about all this on my plate, I put this out. God help me. How many times do we all say that? God help me. Just 2 words, and I got a 2-word answer, and the answer was help me. Help me.
Mutual benefit.
Yeah,
Shared
exactly.
interest.
Shared interest.
That's one of the phrases in Ken Wapnick's Journey Through the Manual. He talks about how it kind of stuck with me. In the introduction he says there's two themes in the that third book, the manual, that is trusting Holy Spirit and shared interest. And I was thinking, well, that's pretty cool. I mean, those really go hand in hand, don't they?
They really do.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
Because we all want to wake up. I mean, and seeing that and seeing the sinlessness, the innocence in each other really is the gift that keeps on giving, isn't it? That's how we're truly helpful, isn't it?
It really, really is. I mean, what a good life you've got if you can see the innocence.
Yeah.
That's what made me fall in love with my wife. Really, I mean, it was like
Mhm.
this, she's innocent. I mean, you could see the innocence in there, right?
Mhm.
And that'll pull you in every time. That's why we fall in love with children.
Yeah.
You know, there's that innocence in there, and that pulls us in. So, because they're not polluted yet so much by the world. That takes time.
Yeah, it seems to, doesn't it? And the pretense we can switch on and off any moment, I suppose, huh?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Although it
It's a matter of
sometimes
being
it
aware.
does seem to take a lot of practice sometimes.
Well, it does,
Yeah.
which is why I recommend to people that don't do that workbook just once.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
No, I mean, you go back and every time you do it, you're going to go deeper. You're going to see it more clearly, and you're going to have insights you didn't have the first time through. This is taking us all the way home. So we're
Yes.
going to keep revelation upon revelation until you're done. So you're cooked, I guess, and that's the idea. So you are the Christ. You see what Jesus saw. You do what Jesus did,
Mhm.
and wake up.
Yeah.
I wrote a poem on that recently.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Is it handy?
Let me see. I had it. I might have to get up and go get it. I know it's over on the other table.
Oh, well, if it's you know,
Let
don't
me go
bother to
get
fit.
it.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna go get a poem, and I'm enjoying this conversation very much. Well, he's going to fetch a poem. There we go.
All right. To see what Jesus saw is to do what Jesus did, to let the Christ be fully known and never hid. To see what Jesus saw is to be who Jesus is. To give our minds to him is to have the same self mind as his. To give our minds to him is to become the Christ as well. To become the Christ as well is to be free of the ego's hell. To see what Jesus saw is to follow the same self path he trod. To follow this same self path is to find our way to God. To know what Jesus knows is to be oneself right now. To commit oneself to God is to make a solemn vow. To follow God's voice this moment and forever is to join with kindred souls in a beatific great endeavor.
Wow,
Fun.
that's wonderful. Thank you.
Oh, thank God.
Really, really.
That came while I was standing at the kitchen sink.
Nice, nice.
Yeah, it is nice.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah, we have a really, really wonderful example, and I thinking of Jesus reminds me of and what he must have gone through.
oh,
Reminds me of Gary Renard's fourth book, which I really enjoyed, the Lifetimes When Jesus and Buddha Knew Each Other.
right.
And if you
Mhm.
have you read that? Yeah, I
I've
find that
listened
really,
to it.
the first half of that really inspiring, of hearing how Jesus and Buddha and Mary Magdalene all help each other, just kind of like go work out all their ego kinks and foibles and quirkinesses, and just, okay, go through all the petty jealousies and the grievances and the issues and the resentments, and just see where that's getting them, and until, you know like river rocks polishing over the eons, they worn smooth and
Right.
ready to shine and go home, I guess. Yeah. Something
Well,
like that.
something like that, yes.
Yeah. But it makes it a little more approachable, I think, that the course's process of forgiveness, and because it may be challenging, but it is doable. It is doable, and
Well,
it's a happy inevitability, actually. Yeah. Yeah.
I always pretty much thought Ken had done it. I think Bill was the first to really get the course. I mean, to live it.
I got that impression reading um, the biography.
Right.
Yeah.
But Ken was right there too.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
right.
yeah,
No doubt about that.
yeah, yeah. I continue to find listening to his workshops and YouTube videos inspiring, and
Oh, yeah. He
so
left us a mountain.
oh, it's immense, isn't it?
Oh, God.
The
Just,
depth, breadth, and profundity of insights is
oh,
magnificent. Yeah.
God, how he did all that was, he was so focused. Ken didn't brag or talk about himself very much, but once I heard him say he had a great ability to focus. Well, that was a really interesting statement
Mhm.
because it would require tremendous focus. I mean, just to put that glossary index together, for example, right? And the dedication that was involved in doing that,
Mhm.
just for one thing.
Kind
Well,
kind of reminds me of another Richard Bach quote that came up in a course study group the other day. Something reminded me of I think it was in his Illusions book where Don Shimoda in that story is talking to Richard and asking him, how I think it was in the context of he was trying to learn how to either vaporize clouds or walk through walls or doing some of these things that Don Shimoda was doing in this book. And and Richard was asking, well, how do you do that? And then the answer he gave was something similar to the focus, and so he turns it around and says, well, when you were learning to fly, that was seemed pretty easy for you, because he's an avid pilot, and then Richard says, yeah, nothing else mattered. And there's like, oh, yeah.
nothing else mattered.
Nothing else mattered. Oh, now I get it.
Yeah, right.
It's just as I try to remind myself when I'm distracted and diverted to all these miscellaneous, um, ego diversions and
Yeah.
missteps or whatever. It's like, well, if I can just catch myself and forgive myself for there's nothing wrong with the detours. It's just like I can pick myself up and get back on course when I discover I'm going down the wrong road. In the same way that GPS doesn't berate you when you make a wrong turn. It just says, well,
Right.
to get back on course, you need to turn here and take
Then you
take.
idiot, I told you left, you went right.
Of course, maybe there are some GPS versions that have, snarky commentary that in the works. I don't know. Hopefully not, but
I heard that somebody had created one,
oh,
but
really? Oh, okay. Oh, maybe I shouldn't have said anything. The thought got picked up somewhere. Yeah,
right.
yeah, no, that's funny.
You use the word detour, and I have really found in this life journey process that every detour that I've run into, the way around it was the right road.
Yeah.
That was the road I was supposed to be on.
Mm-hmm.
You can't go this way. You can't go this way anymore. Okay, so I'll go this road. Oh, just like when I had that end thing crash and left the Methodist church, I would not have met my wife, as I said, if I hadn't done that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
My God, I would never have met this beautiful woman that so fills up my life now.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of that it's section 10 in the manual. I was talking about judgment. In order to judge anything rightly, we would have to be aware of everything past, present, and to come in infinite detail, and knowing, what would be a perfect benefit to everyone in every situation. Is like, who's in a position to do that except in their wildest fantasies? It's like,
Right.
no one.
No one. Right.
Yeah, but it does,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
like you say, when you look back in retrospect, you're like, gee, those things that I thought were detours or adversities, they actually turned out to be things that were incredibly helpful. Yeah. Yeah.
actually the kind of things that sort of get you back on the road, actually. That's what
Mhm.
benefit of crushing and burning. Oh, wasn't that road? Get up, get back. Wonderful.
Get back to where we once belonged, Jojo, right?
Oh, yeah. That's a good line, isn't it?
Yeah. Been enjoying some of the Beatles lyrics and thinking about I watched an interview with Paul McCartney not too long ago where I thought, gee, here's somebody who you think the whole world loves, and what issues would he have, psychologically? And he was saying, well, I worry about whether or not people like me just like everyone
Right.
else. And I thought,
Huh.
oh, okay. Shared interest. We're all the same, none of
Right.
us are
Right.
different. Yeah. Yeah.
I did love the Beatles music. It was so clear. I mean, you could understand all the words.
Yeah. Yeah.
Help or imagine or whatever they all were right on, and they
Yeah.
stuck with us.
Yeah.
All right. I went to a concert recently with I won't say what it was. And huge. I mean, I'm talking about 10,000 people at this event. It
Wow.
was at Bethel, and where Woodstock was held.
Oh, okay.
It's only about an hour from here.
Yeah.
And I couldn't understand anything. It was so loud. And this singer was screaming into the microphone. And I don't know, I get a word here, a word there. Not to be critical, it's just so different from the Beatles.
So no, there weren't any closed captions
No, there were no
scrolling
close.
underneath. Oh,
There
okay.
were, you could see him on there was big screens, but anyhow.
Uh, yeah.
You had to have that spiritual dimension, and they had that spiritual dimension
It
for
does seem
sure.
like it. Yeah. And I don't think it was just their time with the Maharishi that did it. I think they were
No,
already kind of
yes,
pre-wired, just as we all are, to want to find
right,
our way home. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Oh, no problem. No problem. Well, we could probably
I'll go
go
ahead
on
and
for another few
we
hours.
could.
What's that?
I'm going to turn this off.
Oh,
Somebody
okay.
called suspected scam. Do you know suspected scam?
It actually is labeled that.
Uh-huh.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Yeah.
All
Well, I
right.
think I think the biggest suspected scam is the belief in separation, right? It takes a lot of
There you
forms.
go. That
Yeah.
is that boy, you hit it on the head. It is a big one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Bruce. It's been fun being with you.
Thank you, John. Yeah, I've really enjoyed this time, and I'm sure we could continue for many hours, but I'll be cognizant of your time, and I really appreciate your stories and insights, and I know of people that will listen and watch this will too. So,
Um, I'm not sure I've got your address in our database.
oh, okay, I'll make
So
sure you get that. Yeah.
send that to me. We'll start a subscription to Miracles Magazine
Oh,
for you.
great, great,
Okay.
very good, very good.
Yeah. Good.
Okay,
What do you stay in touch?
absolutely, absolutely.
What did you say you get Sunday with Monday?
Yeah, I'm already an email subscriber, so
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Well, good.
And I years ago when I first got into the course, I was getting the physical magazine too, and I'm not sure how I got off the list, but anyway, but
You
I was
probably didn't renew.
maybe that's what it was.
Oh, yeah, you got to renew this thing.
One of those things. Got to re-up, yeah,
There
re-up
we
our
go.
commitment to that inner kindness teacher every
All
moment.
right.
Yeah,
It's been an absolute delight, and I
absolutely, yes, very
hope
much
that
so.
we get to be in each other's physical presence at some future day.
I'm sure of it. Yep.
So, but let me just before we go, how are you spending your time now working with the course?
Well, there's several online study groups and classes, and I not infrequently am a facilitator for the School for Course in Miracles, which is Tim Wise and Lynn Corona's online classes. And there's a handful of other people that are avid course students and teachers, and I enjoy having conversations with those on a semi-regular basis. And one that you're probably familiar with is Lynn Johnson
Yeah.
on Saturday mornings, who does ACM Gather. We've been going through most recently. We actually went through Gary Renard's fourth book, aforementioned. It took about a year doing that, and then for about 3 years, we've been very slowly but surely going through the journey home. Um,
Oh,
Ken's wonderful book on chapter 19 and the text of the course, and so I think we just hit page 400 on that last Saturday. So
wow.
that's a fun thing. We have great conversations on Saturday mornings with that too. So yeah, just I'm probably on Zoom calls, course related Zoom calls, once, twice, or three times a day typically. So
Really?
yeah, it's fun. So, and lots
Oh,
of great
this is
great
fun.
things. So yeah,
That's a lot.
yeah. So kind of keeps the reminder factor, going for me. So
Yeah, obviously.
yeah.
Very good.
Well, thanks so much. And I'll
Good.
send you a link when we're done. So,
Okay. Thank you.
and enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah.